one struggle that I know I had in my marriage, especially early on, and I see it now with friends, with clients, I hear y'all stories, is just about how our conflicts and arguments stem so deeply from, we say the word logistics, but this is what happened. No, this is what happened. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, like, I wish I had a camera in here so you could see what actually happened. Yep. And so today we are going to be talking about our narratives and how that plays a role in what our conflicts look like and what we can do to get past that cycle that we find ourselves in. So welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open the emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I'm your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis Hill. And together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Such an interesting topic because I think that probably most married people that you encounter, you talk to, and you mention this whole courtroom idea, like in an argument, in a fight, we are so often trying to prove I'm right, you're wrong. Prove what I said, prove what you said, prove the tone of your voice, prove, you were yelling, you were screaming, you said that 100 times. Like we get down, which is what we often call the logistics of the situation. And what is so powerful about the connection codes is that when you get down to what's actually happening for you and you can get down to the emotion, it simplifies life. And I know in our early married life, this narrative of feeling like we were going into a courtroom and we had to prove, we had to be prepared. We're going to stand in front of the judge and the jury, and we have to do a really good job with our narrative of what happened so we can prove I was right and you were wrong. And the judge and the jury are going to agree with me. And I remember in our early days when conflict lasted a long time, like we couldn't seem to get through it.
Only for a few weeks.
Right.
It don't take a long time.
Usually if we were at odds for a few weeks and we could not get anywhere, then we would reach out to friends and be like, hey, we're kind of stuck. Can we come over or can y'all come over? And so we would sit down with another couple and we would tell our sides. And then we were looking to them to make a judgment on it.
Yeah.
And, we were always so thankful for our friends, but so sadly, 99% of the time, they would say, Phyllis, you were right, Glenn, you were wrong. And of course, this is all pre-connection codes. So there was no language to it. And it was like, I feel so much sadness now thinking back to how unfair that was to Glenn and how he was in so much pain, but no one was hearing the pain. And of course, we didn't know how to find out what was happening for him. And yet it was almost like, I wonder that, if you dreaded those encounters because you knew that 99% of the time you were going to be
right. For the longest time, I was the eternal optimist because both macro and thinking, okay, we'll do this thing, this setup, but also in the micro, because just like I did with you, I'd be like, let me explain it one more time, Tara. I don't think you're getting the point here. And I would go over it again, and then Tara would go, no, Phyllis is right. So I'm like, let me give you an analogy. Let me give you another example. And Tara's sitting there going, no, it's obvious Phyllis is right, Glenn's wrong. Not realizing, there's something funky happening. The episode we did recently on disorders of the psyche. Glenn's psyche is disorder. He's not right or wrong. That's just what's happening for him. And we can sit here all day, and we call it the court case, and Phyllis can win the court case and lose the relationship, which is what would happen with us. And most relationships, certainly not just partnered pairs, but relationships, one of them wins the court case. Congratulations, you won the court case. You lost the relationship. Well, I don't want you to win the court case. I don't care about the court case. If Wes says you did that 7 times and you are absolutely 100% clear you did it twice, sue the guy, take him to court, and prove to a judge and a jury that you only did it twice. Congratulations. You won the court. Well, you lost your relationship. And that's what happened with us over and over again is I felt so unseen, unheard, unvalued. I was wounded in those scenarios. And Phyllis was quote unquote right. It just didn't matter. And we always say you can be totally correct and absolutely wrong at the same time. Totally correct about the information, but that's not the issue.
Right.
Absolutely wrong in the relationship.
And can I add here too, that even when you're totally correct in the information, that's not always even connecting for other people. So y'all go and you sit across from your friends. Glenn shares, this is what I was upset about. Well, if it's not something that they think is worthy of being upset about, Glenn loses. Yep. And we've even gotten feedback from some of our listeners that either heard mine and Wes's argument that we had where we were talking about sex on an episode. It wasn't an argument, but a conflict we were having over sex. We had people write in and they were like, Tira, it was ridiculous that you acted that way. Like, why would you act that way?
Wow.
And people also messaged when y'all shared your story about your disconnect over watching a movie. Like, why would Glenn be, it's just a movie? And so when we're talking about logistics, there's also so much judgment on the logistics when we're not able to see, oh no, that was a fear experience for Tira, or this was a pain experience for Glenn. So that also plays a role into the court case. There's judgment on it.
Yeah, I didn't even know about feedback like that. And I don't know who these people are, and I'm not judging them in their judgment, but they obviously don't get that we experience what we experience. We just do. So I guess you just shoot Glenn and put him out of his misery, or you can ooh him, just be present and go, oh, so hold on, that's what happens for you. The curiosity, which is the connection codes. This is one of my great pain points with us conveying the connection codes, is that people think they're sweet. Some people do. The connection codes are not sweet. The connection codes are fierce. The connection codes are powerful. The connection codes are directional, intentional. For me to be able to turn to this woman and say, I feel some pain about that movie. Well, I have the right to, I'm not trying to feel pain. What am I, an idiot or something? I got up that morning, let me find some place to feel pain. Nobody does that. I felt pain in the movie. I have the right to convey it to her, which I did not do in that setting. So we completely missed each other. But I'm not trying to feel pain. And again, whoever this listener is, I'm not trying to be mean to them. But so judge me in experiencing pain about the movie. What are you going to do with Glenn? I guess you just throw him out because he's damaged goods or something. That's so sad that we have that mentality. I don't know. 9,000 other people might watch that movie and feel joy the whole time. I didn't. I felt pain. What are you going to do with me?
I actually love that we had that example. So for our listener, that they're like, oh gosh, that was me. Like, I love that you reached out.
Absolutely.
Because then she and I actually had a great discussion. I think it was over Instagram. Like we voice memoed back and forth. Like I loved connecting with her. But that is such a great learning moment of, it doesn't have to make sense.
Absolutely. It so often is not going to.
It's not going to. And that is where even in our relationships, Wes can come to me with a logistic and it's not going to make sense to me. So even there, I'm going to place judgment on his logistic, or I'm going to argue, no, we actually had sex 3 times last week. And then we're going to get the calendar out and then we're going to try to remember what days things happened. Right. And now we are arguing over something because we got so stuck in the facts of it. And is this actually something worthy of being upset over?
And you will conclude that discussion not connected.
Yeah.
And again, whichever one, you prove that actually Tira is correct. She won the court case. It was 3 times. Or Wes is correct. And again, for most of us, we can't prove or disprove. How in the world are you going to do that? Prove that you are 100% accurate. Nobody is 100% accurate in their narrative. And when I'm telling Phyllis about something that happened, it's actually 3 different things. I'm sharing my memory, which is inaccurate, of my experience of the event. That's 3 different things. And go talk to a private investigator, go talk to police detectives. They'll tell you 10 people can watch an event. All 10 of them have a different story. Well, who's right? I don't know. What are you going to do with the other 9? Let's say one of them is correct. All the other 9, they did experience what they experienced. So for us just to realize, and I should say that because I said with so many clients who are good, solid connection coders, and whichever one, she's losing her mind, yelling at him, saying, you never do this. She is incorrect.
Mm.
She is inaccurate. And a good connection coder, he just oohs her and goes, ooh, wow. The connection codes protocol, every emotion is an opportunity to connect or not. Most people do the or not. So for him to see this and go, she's really lit up about this. She is really activated about this. What an incredible opportunity. Is she accurate in her memory of the experience? No, she's not accurate. Who cares? So sue her, I guess. Hire private investigators, freeze frame the video of your life, find out. No, I don't care. And I mean, I've had people in my office, yell all kinds of ridiculous stories in the book. This woman said, you do this 100 times a day. How many things do you do 100 times in one day? And she was so emphatic, and he oohed her. And she finally worked her way down 50. She got to 10. And then she finally, through many tears, she said, I don't know how often you do this, but it really hurts. And because he oohed her, she got there in probably 20, 30 seconds. But he could have stopped her the first time. Said, no. It is not 100 times a day. Congratulations, dude. You won the court case. You lost the relationship. And he didn't. He did the opposite. He was totally present with her.
I kind of always wonder what happened to us in our early years. Think of yourself as that 5-year-old, right? At what point in our lives did we think that we have to prove that we're right? When we slow people down and we dig into what's happening for you with that idea of, it's not even that they will say, I have to be right. They just know they are right. And I think for a lot of us, and myself included, being brought up, you begin to think about, how was I taught about God? Like, what is my imagery of God? I definitely the word grace was taught. There's grace. But I do feel that I grew up where you work your way to heaven. Like there's a work orientedness to my heritage. And yes, there's grace if you need it. But, and I do remember very clearly as a young child that if you sinned, whatever that even meant, that was this mysterious word, but you didn't pray for forgiveness and you died in a car wreck, you would go to hell because that one sin was not, you did not verbally. So I just remember at night doing an inventory before going to sleep, because if I died in my sleep, I want to make sure I went to heaven. And so it was like, okay, what sin did I commit today? So I was always doing a sin inventory. And thankfully, I never sinned. So, because I only had I didn't kill anyone today, because that's a sin. And I didn't lie. So that's good. I didn't steal anything. That's good. So I had this really, for sure, didn't commit adultery. Don't even know what that is. But I could check mark that one off. Didn't do that today. So I had this list that I was taught that was sin. And so there was this check mark of, just because there was so much fear that if I didn't pray for a specific forgiveness thing, which is interesting because I think about, there are religions where you go to a confessional, there's a whole thing, right? Well, I didn't grow up with that. It was more, you better do it on your own. And so I think that in encountering and talking to people in the work that we do, I feel that often it's this incredible fear of going to hell, of fear of, if I even consider that I'm wrong, that I might have not done, it's like we make it a judgment thing. We make it a God thing instead of just realizing, oh, I missed that with you.
Yeah.
I didn't tune into what was happening for you.
Yeah.
And whether it's hell or condemnation, judgment, there's some horrible result. And I think that's part of the power of the connection codes for me to be able to say, oh, shoot, I missed on that with you. I missed you in that. Not because I'm evil. I just missed it. I missed that was.
And the logistics are exhausting. Like if you have to show up in court every day and prove your innocence, that is so exhausting.
Right.
And it's just like, because I know I lived there, where I felt like if I don't show up and prove, But, oftentimes Glenn would out-talk me. And so I would just eventually give up. And I'd be like, yep, you're right. I'm wrong. Can we be done with this now? Like, I don't even remember how it started. I don't even remember the details of what are we fighting about. I'm just so tired and weary. You're right. I'm wrong. And that's the thing, I think, in realizing that court case will never get you there.
Yeah.
And even the pressure of feeling like I have to be right in this relationship. I have to show up with the facts.
Yeah.
I have to speak truth. You didn't say it 5 times. You only said it 3 times.
Yeah. What's firing for me in thinking through that is, one, mine was not necessarily based in religion, but just being believed. Even as a kid, like, I just want to know that you're going to believe what I'm saying.
Wow.
And so if Wes brings something to me, his hurt, then like, I want you to believe me. Like, I didn't do this, or it happened totally different. This was my intention. So I think that is mine, but also it gives me identity to share my side of the story. Sex was just such a topic for us for so long. I think so many people find themselves there. Like, so if he comes and he's like, we haven't had sex in 2 weeks. And I'm like, no. We had sex 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And now we are arguing over that logistic. I want to be seen. I want to know that my efforts of how I showed up, that he recognizes that, but he wants to know that his lack, which we would know in these terms as loneliness, is seen. I think it's an identity thing. We go at each other because we want to feel seen, but our narratives are not accurate, as Glenn, you're explaining, and we're missing each other because what, Phyllis, you're also saying is we're not getting to the emotion. If Wes could come and say, I'm feeling lonely, sexual loneliness, that is so different because now I can actually see him.
And he's experienced sexual loneliness, whether you did do something sexual 3 times in the last 2 weeks or you did 0
there you go. Yep.
times. He's still experiencing what he's experiencing.
Yeah.
So, because the Connection coach that, because that's just such a perfect example. Because I really want our listeners to get the application of this. This isn't just theory, macro, neat idea, but specifically.
Well, and can I share a little bit deeper then? If you're going to connection codes it, it got so intense for us. I got a tracker. I started tracking on my phone.
So you could win the court case.
So I could win the court case. Absolutely. And to make sure he knew what I was doing. Yes, for my identity. So yeah, connection codes that.
Well, I want people to go from the courtroom to the courtyard to courtship. The court room, you've got this court case and you're just going at each other. I mean, you are enemies, you are adversaries. I want them to go to the courtyard where they can sit and talk to each other and figure out what happened. And then into courtship where they're actually able to court each other. They're actually able to have fun together, to be friends. Just totally changes the whole dynamic. But, every emotion is an opportunity to connect or not. So if Wes came to you and said, we haven't had sex in 2 weeks, well, that's not a core emotion. So F- for Wes. But Tira has an opportunity here. And I want her to be able to, it's very important that she states her experience in the moment. We have to process the first emotion first, but it's very important that Tira says it. A client said to me recently, I thought it was so good. He said, if I don't say out loud, if I don't verbalize my emotion, I really, really struggle being present with her emotion. I just think that's so good. Let me say it again. If I don't verbalize my emotion, I really struggle being present with her emotion. So, and here we're switching her and he, but Wes comes and says, we haven't had sex in 2 weeks. I want Tira to be able to go, I feel some pain there. We'll talk about my pain in a minute. Babe, what's happening for you? And again, Wes did a crappy job. He didn't say a core emotion, but Tira can still use that as an opportunity to connect, to help him find himself and to tell her. And then he goes, what happened for me? Oh, I'm feeling really lonely instantly. Tira's right with the 3 phrases. Oh, wait, what's happening for lonely? What am I missing there? Because I guess it's sexual loneliness. She goes, oh, what's happening there? He processes it with her. I always say you process it you follow the energy till the end. We don't know what the end is, but you can feel it when you get there. And Tira, certainly Tira with Wes, would be able to see it. She would be able to see it begin to release him, to dissipate, to process. And then she does the fourth phrase. She goes, "Babe, what do you need?" He's like, "I'm so glad you brought that up. I need sex time with you." And that does not mean Tara has to take her clothes off in the next 10 minutes. They are busy. The two of you live wild, crazy, busy lives. They may not be sexually involved for a day or two. I have no idea. But they will actually experience sexual connection in that processing, even though they didn't do anything sexual, which is amazing to me. I've just learned this the last couple of years that that's true. So now they're partnered in the whole thing. Now they're in the courtship. They're not in the courtroom, and they've actually moved past the courtyard. So they're actually courting each other, and they're dancing.
Yeah.
And now Wes gets bonus points if he goes, "Oh, babe, you mentioned pain. What was happening for you there?" And Tara's like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I remember that we did sexual stuff. I think it's 3 times in the last 2 weeks." I may not be accurate, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Tara is here, but Wes isn't. Because I would love to slow that down with you. Because I know for a lot of married couples that are listening, this is a common pain point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm thinking of it for us in this moment in our lives. I feel like this turns into a pain point. And I would just love to hear you process through, like, what is that pain when he comes? And how did he say it? Or
like if back in the day, he would have said something like, "We haven't had sex in 2 weeks."
Right. So that's a non-connection codes way of saying, feeling sexual loneliness. So let's go back to the old, where the old Wes would show up and simply say, and so then what would happen for you in that moment?
In that moment, I would feel pain that we had. I would feel fear that now I've got to right now. Like I need to take my clothes off in this second and do that. I would feel shame that I wasn't a good enough wife for him. I would feel anger that he didn't see me and all that I'm carrying with these 4 kids at home. I would feel guilt that he feels this way. Lonely that I did show up and you didn't see it. So was I just there by myself? What was the point of even doing it? And the sad would have been the same. Yeah, I would have felt every single emotion in that moment. Yeah.
And I guess 1, 2 with the anger, the fact that, because it'd be a different scenario probably if he came to you and said, "I know we've done sexual things 3 times in the last 2 weeks, which has been so much joy. I love sex with you. But I'm also feeling sexual loneliness." We just changed the world.
Yep.
Changed the whole setup. So the anger also is, wait, you completely discounted me and us and what we did sexually. That was a 0 for you. It pisses me off. How dare you say the sexual interactions we had was a 0?
Yeah.
It counts for nothing. And I think it'd be an identity thing. Like, wow, I'm not even seen. I don't even matter. We did sexual stuff and it equaled nothing.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think now our podcast is going back down that road of talking about sex, which is great. Like if we slow it down even more and that kind of scenario in a married couple, like, oh, no sex in 2 weeks. And yet, because you're a tracker, oh no, it's been 3. It's like to go to a deeper level of, oh, babe, what's happening? Like what is happening there? And for him to be able to slow himself down and go, what is happening? Well, a lot of fear with this one client. And they're yelling at me constantly. Yeah. They are blowing up my phone. And so, I'm feeling a lot of fear there. And then, gosh, I guess a lot of anger too, because I don't even feel human in this situation. Like they are treating me like I'm a machine and I'm not. And they're bothering me at night and they're blowing up my phone first thing in the morning. So all of a sudden you've taken wow, we've not had sex in 2 weeks to slowing it down so much.
Yeah.
That there's actually really deep conversation and connection.
Again, the opportunity.
Right.
Amazing.
And to realize, for both of you, because I think that often, for us, there is, we have so much history and we've had so much pain in our early years. And so I easily get triggered. And what I hear too often is I'm just never enough. I just never do enough. Yeah. I don't initiate enough. I'm not playful enough. And it only takes one little comment to get me there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So then it's again, that can cause a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
Or it's like we can tune into each other because Glenn is experiencing what he's experiencing. Like if he's feeling sexual loneliness or that, sex is never a priority or however the bigger statements. I could compare us to any couple on the planet that prioritizes sex, right? It just takes one statement that can crumble it. It's a simple statement like we haven't had sex in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that right there is like this huge foghorn of a message.
Which may or may not even be accurate. That's not even the point.
Right.
The point is he's experienced sexual loneliness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you've had sex 10 times in the last 2 weeks. He's experienced sexual loneliness.
Well, we were having a great podcast with Sam Jolman, thank you, and talking about how men are lovers. And I loved his perspective. He's written a book. It's called The Sex Talk You've Never Had. And kind of the idea that we've labeled men. So at a young age, it starts early, kind of like men just need sex. They just want sex. And it's like we ignore all of the human side of it. Like men are lovers. Men love touch. Men love all of that. And we've heard such a negative message. And so we miss so many pieces of it. So going back, I say all that just in the fact that when you can slow down, which is very difficult when you've been triggered.
Yeah.
Right? Because being triggered and wanting to be right to prove that is not true. We've had it 3 times.
And it's an identity issue at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which heightens it.
And then your own emotional dysregulation can come in. But then you also miss each other because that is the power. Like I know for you listeners, you may go, "Ooh, this is really hard." Well, yeah, I mean, it can be because you're going to another level because you are basically saying, "Oh, I feel instant hurt when you say that, but we'll set aside my hurt. I want to find out what's happening with you." And to really slow it down and get curious and lean in and to hear the loneliness. So, okay, get that. What else is happening with you? Maybe it's a great time to go, let's do the wheel. That's when you hear that there's a client that is really causing a lot of pain and fear. And then you find out that also your partner's dealing with shame because he hasn't worked out for 3 days in a row. So then it all starts making sense.
Yeah.
Right. And then you tune in and then, hopefully he would be a good connection coder and go, circle back around to your hurt and go, what's happening there?
Yeah.
To give you an opportunity to go, well, I'd like to do the wheel because when you say that one statement, I feel all this pain. And then to be able to share. Because I think otherwise we are just going to stay stuck.
Right. And I just have to say that. And I don't mean to laugh at people's pain, but and it's the reason we say you win the court case, you lose the relationship. I've never seen, and whether it's the male or female, whatever, whichever partner, I've never seen a relationship where one of them says, we haven't had sex in 2 weeks, where the other is like, oh, well, babe.
Let's go.
I've never
put that kid in the crib.
Right. I have a lot of experience. I've sat with a lot of people. So even
it doesn't go over well, is what you're saying.
Right, the selling position of it is horrible.
Never works.
Even if it's true, even if it's accurate, even if you'd win the court case, you're going to lose the relationship. And again, I've sat with tons of partnered pairs, and so often it's the guy that somehow thinks if he, I don't know what it is, guilts her enough, indicts her enough, judges her enough, criticizes her enough, then all of a sudden she's going to be like, oh my gosh, babe, I'm so turned on right now. The way you have just treated me like crap. And, I feel like the worst wife ever. So yeah, let's have a romantic encounter. It's just so bizarre. And again, we're a little further down the trail than some. So now we get it. I know the people that are in it. I mean, whichever one it could be, but he's dying. But he doesn't have the tools. So he thinks if I tell her that it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, whatever, then she will fall into my arms.
Yeah.
And kiss passionately at sunset. No.
Yeah.
Never happened.
That's such a great point. And I never even thought about that until you were just sharing that, Phyllis, about to get even deeper and really find out. because I could have gotten deeper with him, like what we initially said. It was like, well, what's happening for you? Well, I'm having sexual loneliness. But to go even deeper, when I look back at those years of our marriage, it wasn't even about the sex. There was just so much pain happening all around us. It was just a connection. And I can't blame, of course my husband wants to connect. Of course he wants to feel connected, but I just viewed it as the logistical of sex. Well, I'm exhausted too, buddy,
Right.
And so digging deeper into that is also uncovers so much of what actually is happening in you. And I do want to share the flip side of it, that's what it used to be. That was our old narrative. And so I shared, Wes and I had a podcast that came out just a couple of weeks ago where I shared that my joy was we had a moment that typically would have turned into conflict, but it didn't even turn into conflict. And that it was over sex. And he was out of town last week. He's going out of town again next week. But he came home to a wife that was exhausted this time around. I mean, I was done. Just logistically too much on my plate with him being gone. Well, he comes home and he's like, let's go, homie. And I'm like, I'm not there, I essentially was just like, I just need you to take care of things. I'll come in at some point, but I'm doing no work. I'm doing the bare minimum for you right now. The next day he came to me and he was like, I want to process this with you. I felt hurt in that moment, I felt hurt that you didn't want to show up or you couldn't show up and, that it's just up to me, and I was able to ooh him through it and see that and then share I hear that. And I felt like this was one of those times we have a podcast, he and I, where I'm like, I wish sex wasn't a need. I was like, that's one of those times where I wish you could have seen me, that I was at my wit's end. And so the difference is how he approached me in that conversation of starting from the core of really seeing me. And the night before, even before he mentioned sex, he was like, I've got the kids, you get in the bath. I'd been in the bath for an hour by myself before he even said the words, so he knew his homework at least. But the approach, we then connected over it. It never even turned into conflict. Wow. And so the difference of where we are today over the same exact topic of what used to send us into so much pain, so much disconnect is night and day difference. And then the next night we had sex. It's like all that does is encourage you to connect more, and just the whole transformation that can take place from that is just amazing. Yeah.
It is bizarre that, and again, it's men and women, but so often men think if we bicker enough about it, then we'll have great sex. It's like, what? That's the opposite. No, that will never, ever, ever work. But again, people don't have the tools. And so they just flounder.
Yeah. I want to do a podcast about that. I've been really talking with my coaching clients about validation. And now what I've really helped Wes see is I want to hear what a great job I did. Because for so many years, it was only negative. You don't do this. This isn't enough. Like Phyllis, you mentioned earlier, it doesn't take much to feel like we're not enough. And I should say that's my narrative. That doesn't mean Wes was even projecting that on me. That just goes back to show, I just said, Wes always told me these negative things, but that was my experience. And now it's like, no, dude, I better get a text message the next day. I want to hear what a great job I did. And all that does is fuel me to want to show up again and again and again.
Wow.
And so really, even switching the narrative from you don't do a good job here to I see you, thank you, that also changes everything in how we speak to each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so with this, that just shows how much our narrative impacts how we show up and that you're never going to win the court case when you're coming to each other from the logistic. It really is getting underneath, finding out what is truly happening, holding space for the first person who comes. So even if they don't share from the core, slow yourself down, find out, and then you can share what happens for you as well. But that is ultimately where you're going to connect. It's over the emotion and not over the logistic. And so we're going to share with you the 4-minute tool that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis have created to help you do that very thing. It's what gave Wes and I the language to communicate these things, where he knew it was hurt that happened for him this week, where he could come and share that and hold space. And you can get this tool through the link in our bio or the show notes and practice it for yourself. Do it on your own and then bring it to your partner and say, hey, I would have a lot of joy if we could do this with each other, because I want to know what's actually happening for you, so we can stop this cycle of conflict in our house. So who's doing it today?
Oh, I'll go. And I'm going to do issue specific about just, I would say the court case for me. Just anger that we lived in that environment for so long. Guilt, shame, and sad that you lost so often in that courtroom. And so you weren't seen and heard so much, because logistically I could prove that I was right and you were wrong. A lot of hurt in those memories. Matter of fact, when we do episodes like this, when we share this part of our story, I can remember specific ones that were really big deals. And so there's just a lot of memory hurt in that. It was a very lonely time, because it didn't connect us. It was so lonely. We might stop arguing over something like it was ended, but it was so lonely. Fear, definitely. I would say I had a lot of fear back then in that whole courtroom life. Fear, I just hated conflict with you. Like, I felt fear probably every day, because I always remember thinking, I don't know what's going to trigger him. And so I lived in a lot of fear. My joy is, oh my gosh, that we don't live there anymore and that we understand it so clearly, that we have the tools, like to even show up and say what's happening for you, and knowing that I can find you in that. And when I get to my core and your core, we find each other. And I have so much joy about that.
Okay, I'll do issue specific too. For me, there was so much fear always, because I knew best case scenario, we're going to get with somebody else and they're going to tell me I'm wrong. Worst case scenario, we'll just fight for 5 hours straight, 3 weeks, or who knows what. And there's just constant fear, and that there was no hope for the future, because I'm like, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel at all. So much guilt and shame continuously, because I knew these 3-hour conflicts were not good and right, but I didn't know what to do. They were just constant for us. There was a lot of anger then, a lot of anger now, that what are we doing as a society? Because as you've started saying lately, young couples are experiencing the exact same thing. You think 42 years later, it's like, nobody. No, I don't like saying exact. It's exactly the same. It's so sad. It's overwhelming. There's so much loneliness. I don't like saying never. I never felt heard, never felt seen, never felt valued by you, and then by whoever else is involved in the situation. Just sad. I've often shared that depression was my home base. I just stayed there, and then every once in a while I'd visit elsewhere. But it was so overwhelming, and of course, so much hurt. I felt stabbed. I don't know if it's every day, but quite possibly. For years and years and years and years and years. And so much joy now. I mean, it's just stunning to me to get to live with you. And with the same, and in one sense, I'm thankful that we're I don't know how to say that. I know we're not the same people. I get that, but we kind of are. And now, so it's not that you dumped me, I dumped you, and now we have new partners. They found the correct one. Back when Glenn was with Phyllis, that was the incorrect one. Back when Phyllis was with Glenn, that was the incorrect one. But now they found the right one. It's not true. We're the same people. Now we have tools. We were trying to build a house with a toothbrush. And it does not work. And it has nothing to do with intention. It has nothing to do with effort.
Wow.
And I just feel so much joy that we have the tools now where we're like, oh, shoot, this hammer thing will get that nail on that board real quick. Look at that. What do you know?
Wow.
And we just have a completely different set of tools. I love.
Wow.
Lots of joy.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And Phyllis, you said something that just makes me think for our listeners, because you said you can pinpoint specific moments. Like you can feel that pain just like it just happened. And I can relate to that. Like I know some of the things that we both said to each other. That's like we said it yesterday and the pain is just as intense. And so I want our listeners to hear that if you are not using tools to help you connect with your partner and you are getting stuck in the cycles of what we have talked about today, you are creating pain that 10 years from now, you're going to feel it as if it happened yesterday. I was watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives last night on Hulu because I like reality TV. And one of the husbands told the wife, I don't even think I love you anymore. He was just angry. He was angry at her. And I thought, she is never going to forget that he said that to her. She is never, that is going to stay with her for as long as they are married. She will never, I shouldn't say never, it is going to be really hard for her to feel safe with that man. And we do this to each other. We get stuck in the logistic of what you did, what I did. And then we create so much damage and so much pain, and getting out of it is really intense. So if you are not using these tools today, get the Core Emotion Wheel. It is free. And I just want to bang my head into the wall if you don't already have it. And then secondly, the Foundations course. So much pain that people are living this, what we've described today, where I was 4 years ago, where y'all were a decade ago. And you're just there. You know, just so much pain for me. And that we show up week after week and we're like, this is it. This is what changed everything. Yeah. And that people are not taking advantage of it.
And for the record, losing so much money. If we're just going to get it down to dollars and cents, losing. I mean, what did it cost us the years and years and years? How much more money, just dollars and cents, how much more money would we have made if we had been living connected?
Yeah.
A heck of a lot more than the investment. So I beg people, invest the money. It's an investment. It's not a cost. Spend the money and get rocking. Yeah.
The cost of therapy that we spent doing damage control, the cost of divorce, like all of these things. Absolutely. So please start this process now. So you don't get stuck in the cycles of logistics and just going back and forth with an inaccurate narrative, both of you. So you're fighting over something that's not actually even truly real. And you'll never agree. You'll never agree because your experiences are different. But this is where you can see each other. This tool is what makes all the difference. And we have so much joy, though, hearing from you. Those of you that they're like, nope, I'm in. We are navigating it. It's a little sticky at times, but we are figuring it out and we're committed to the process. Hearing from y'all means the world to us. Thank you so much for your reviews, for your 5-star reviews on this podcast. If you've not left one yet, please leave us one. They help us get the word out. And we're even doing giveaways now. So if you leave us a review, screenshot that review, send it in, and we will put you in for a drawing for a mug, a keychain, some of our tools that are not available anywhere else right now. And so thank you again for being here. We do all of this because
you need this.
You deserve this. So let's do this.
Let's do this.